sleeping sound today.
You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
I'm sick and tired of hearing things from uptight, short-sighted, narrow-minded hypocrites. All I want is the truth.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Truth Only Show here on KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and 102.3 FM. We would like to remind you, before we get started with our show, to go to truthonlyshow.com. On truthonlyshow.com, you can find previous episodes of the show, all available on the website to listen to as a podcast or download them and listen to them for later. That's all on truthonlyshow.com. Now, here's the host of the show, David Rodriguez.
Good morning, everyone. Great to have you here with us today on another episode of our show, The Truth Only Show, where we present you nothing but the truth. The truth about what? Yourself. The truth about who you truly are. And like I've said before, we try to keep away from opinions because opinions are fine, but it's better to know the truth of who you truly are. So that's what we're going to do here today. And I really want to give some special thanks to all you listeners out there and to all you new listeners, because I know we have many new listeners today. We've been getting some great responses from you, so great things are happening. So special thanks to all of you. And but I want to give, before we get started, give some thanks to the people that make this show possible. Our engineer, Mr. Joe Pagano, and our webmaster, Mr. Joel Strausser, and my co-host and producer, Michael. Thank you so much, Michael, for all you do. Make my job a whole lot easier. But before we get started, I want to, for all you new listeners out there, want to give you an idea as to what we're about on the show. What we teach here is human nature. And why I believe that's so important, because understanding who you truly are, how you are made, and I don't mean physically, we're talking about your mental state. When you can understand the true nature of your mental state and how it is creative, you will begin to take charge of any situation in your life. So I believe what is the most important thing you can understand is your own nature. Okay, and before we get going, I want to kind of give you an idea that this is kind of an extension from our show last week, what we talked about last week. Last week we talked about belief, and we came to the conclusion, we have, us here on the show, have come to the conclusion many years ago that belief is one of the most important things that you can really get a grasp on in your own life. What is it that you are believing about yourself? Because what it is that you are believing about your own self is what you are experiencing now, today. So, and what we did, we made a little comparison between belief and knowledge. They're both so important. Knowledge is very important, don't get me wrong, but knowledge, making the comparison to belief, I want you to quickly see the difference. Knowledge is great. Many people say knowledge is power. That's true to a certain extent. If you have the knowledge and you're using it, now we can say it is power. But think about it this way. Everyone out there has knowledge, okay? I made the example last week of, let's say, somebody that is 350 pounds. That person has the knowledge to lose that weight. They have all the knowledge. They know what to do. They know what they have to eat. They know they have to get up from the couch and do what it takes to lose it. They have all the knowledge. A person that has a problem with alcohol, they have the knowledge to quit. We all have the knowledge that if you go to school and get some degrees, that your life will financially, most likely is going to improve. We all have the knowledge. We know that. And we encourage others to do it. but something is keeping us from doing it. Think about it. You may have the knowledge, but what's keeping you from doing those things that you know how to do? That's what we're talking about here today, is belief. I mean, that's what we talked about last week. Today we're going to go take this, talk about belief, but we're going to take it a little further. We're going to talk about affirmations, because it is affirmations that you do to yourself that can change your belief system. If you change your belief system, your life is definitely going to change. Now, it all depends on what belief system that you change it to. You may have a very limited belief about yourself right now. And if you believe it or not, it's affirmations that has you believing and living the life that you are living now. Why? Because all thoughts are creative. Every single thing that you are thinking is always making something. You might not be aware of what you're making or creating, but you are making something. You are affirming something. You are affirming limitations. You are affirming poor health when you're thinking about it. That's an affirmation. We may call it a negative affirmation, but it's an affirmation, and it has power to create. So we're talking about what we're talking about here is changing your affirmations. Positive, affirmative affirmations, and being constant with them, being faithful to them, and being 100% focused on your affirmations. And we're talking about something that you do daily. And any time that you can think about thinking positive, affirmative affirmations is what's going to begin to transform your belief about yourself, and it will begin to transform your life. So, I'm going to make a statement, and I want you to, before, some of you are going to say, what is he talking about? Some of you are going to say, no, here he goes into religion. No, I'm not talking about religion. Keep calm, okay? Keep your mind straight and follow what I'm going to say. We are all creators. I'm going to repeat that. We are all creators. Give me a chance to explain it. I want you to think about yourself, about your life. It is your thinking, your decisions from the past, everything that you decided, everything that you went and did, whether you decided to take on that job you're working, whether you decided or decided not to go to school, whether you decided that on that person that you fell in love with, on that all the things based on that house you bought or the house that you didn't buy, or all your thoughts of limitations, whatever you were thinking in your past created your experience now. And I'm talking about each and every one. I'm talking about myself. Each and every one of you has what you thought in the past has created your own experience. Nobody did it to you. You may have allowed others to do it to you, but you had the final say-so, the final decision on everything that you have done in your life. So you created your life. You created everything up to this point. I think if you give it some thought, you will know that that's true about you. You are a creator. You've been given the power to create your own life, your own experience. Now, if you are like I was, I got to a certain point in my life where I didn't like what I had created. So I came to the conclusion that what I was doing wasn't working for me. It wasn't creating the life that I would love to live. It wasn't doing it. So I realized, and I had to just be honest with myself, that I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. My thinking wasn't doing it for me. So I began to search. And what I began to learn after searching and searching for the truth about all this, the truth about life, the truth about how life responds to our thinking and how we created these messes that we have created in our lives, I finally grasped and finally understood that everything I was doing, thinking before, I was affirming limitations. I was affirming poor health. I was affirming poor relationships. I was affirming many things that were creating my experience. So I learned that it's in the affirmations. It's in what you affirm that will change your belief and change your life. So I started believing in the people that were telling me and that I was learning from that you have to begin to think differently. You got to begin to affirm the positive, affirm the constructive, and affirm it like you are already that person, like you already have what you desire. Not that I'm going to have this wonderful life, not I'm gonna have, not that I'm gonna be financially successful. No, I already am. How do you affirm that you already are? I am successful. I am full of joy. I have beautiful relationships. I am healthy. I am strong. Things work in my favor. And for all of those that are around me, life is great. Life is beautiful. And do you notice what I'm saying? It's not going to be. It already is. So the more I affirmed it, the more I began to believe it. And the more it began to sink down deep within me, the affirmations that I was saying to myself on a daily basis, faithfully, the more it sunk down into my person, who I truly am, when it sunk down into my heart, into my subconscious, whichever way you want to think about it, the deeper it sinks down into you, the more you begin to believe it, you're changing your belief system about yourself. And as long as you continue faithfully, things will begin to happen. Life will begin to lead you in that direction. And what I know now to be true, we exist in an infinite intelligence. We exist within an infinite intelligence. And I mean, if you think about it, it has to be true. If we didn't have access to more knowledge than we have right now, and it's infinite, we would still be living in caves. We would still be as animals. But we're not. We're not that way. We may behave that way sometimes, but we're not. Just look around. Look where we are now compared to the caves that we lived in. Just look around. Look at the technology. Think about all the knowledge that exists. But I'm talking about an infinite knowledge that you have access to. That person, the person that is coming up with all these new ideas of technology, he's not any different than you. The only difference with him is he's affirming the good. He's affirming the new. He's believing that he can come up with the new. He's believing that he has access to more knowledge and more knowledge. So that's what he experiences. That's his nature. But that's your nature too. You have it. Remember, who created your life where you are right now? Who did it? Who was responsible for it, really? And don't go say you're going to go blame your parents. Many people like to do that. Like to blame your parents, like to blame your brother, your sister, your relatives, like to blame the economy, like to blame a lot of things. You can keep blaming. You can keep blaming right now. But right now at this point, you have the knowledge to change anything in your life. You know what you have to do. But I'm telling you, what's keeping you from it? Think about it. You developed a very limited belief about your system, about yourself, I'm saying. You developed a very limited belief about yourself. So you will continue to experience the types of things that you are experiencing now because that is your belief system. You can change it. You can change it and you can experience whatever it is that you desire to experience in this life. You can change your belief through what? Affirmations. Begin to speak words into your life that you already are that person. Remember, see it, believe it, use your imagination. What did one of the great thinkers say? Albert Einstein himself I think he was a pretty good thinker. He said, imagination is greater than knowledge. He was saying the same thing that what I'm trying to tell you, but he was just using different words, that's all. But I'm telling you, imagination is greater than knowledge. Imagine yourself already what you want to be. Already there. You're already there. Not you're going to be. I already am. I am. And be faithful with it and watch what happens. Watch. In time, things will begin to happen. Believe it. That is your true nature. Don't go away. We're going to take a short break. And I want to remind you that you're listening to KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, or 106.5 FM. And this is the Truth Only Show. You can find us at trutholyshow.com online. Don't go away. Tell a friend. We'll be right back.
Come up to meet you, tell you I'm sorry. You don't know how lovely you are. I had to find you, tell you I need you, tell you I set you apart. Tell me your secrets and ask me your questions. Oh, let's go back to the start. Running in circles, coming in tails, heads on the sides apart. Nobody said it was easy. It's such a shame for us to part. Nobody said it was easy. No one ever take me back to the start. I was just guessing at numbers and figures, pulling the puzzles apart. Questions of science, science and progress, did not speak as loud as my heart. Tell me you love me, come back and haunt me. Oh, when I rush to the start, running in circles, chasing tails, coming back as we are. Nobody said it was easy. Oh, it's such a shame for us to part. Nobody said it was easy. No one ever said it would be so hard. I'm going back to the start.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Truth Only Show. And we're here talking about affirmations. So this is the continuation from last week, right?
Yeah. Yeah, last week we talked about changing belief, so
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're doing now.
Last week we also started off. We started off with this quote here, and we liked it, and that's why we kind of wanted to continue this talk today.
Right.
I think this is from Muhammad Ali. We read this last week.
Right.
It says, "It's the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen."
Right. That's so true.
Mhm.
So true. That's all there is. That's what will change your belief system about your own self.
And he was known publicly to be screaming out these affirmations,
Yeah.
and people hated him or loved him for it.
But what did he become?
But they remembered him for it.
Be all around the world. He's known as what?
Yeah.
The greatest. What he said.
There's a new commercial for an Apple iPhone X that they're playing on TV right now that has his quote on it.
Oh.
It's a different one than the normal "I am the greatest" one. So let's play that. We'll listen to it.
I am the greatest. I'm going to become champion of the universe. Me with my beautiful, colorful personality. I'm good looking, clean living, cultured, and I am modest. I am so modest I can admit my own fault. My only fault is I don't realize how great I really am. Because I am great. I am the greatest.
You know, hearing
Pretty
that.
funny though.
Yeah, it's funny, but you know what? Hearing that,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people going to have the wrong impression that he was very conceited. Okay?
Yeah.
But no, this is not about that. This show is not about that. It's not about being conceited or any of that. But he came to the conclusion that all of us are great. He was only saying it because he believed that all of us are great. Every single one of you. Think about how great you are. You are a creator of your own life. That makes you pretty great, being a creator of your own life. But think about it. Change what you think about yourself, and you can become whatever you want. So you are much greater than what you think you are right now. You really are. But let me tell you one of the other things that he said. He said this: life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Think about that. We insist on. We can't believe when somebody's teaching you the truth about yourself, that you are a lot greater than you believe about yourself, and trying to tell you that begin to believe that you are great and you will experience great things, whatever you want to experience. Aren't we making life complicated when we don't believe it, and we want to insist on thinking the same thing that we've been thinking all of our lives? Don't we complicate life? Especially if you've created, like I think I had created kind of a disaster for myself using my own logic. It didn't work too good. But try these things, these principles that we talk about here, and watch what will begin to happen.
He has a ton of great quotes. He was a very quotable person. Everything he said in public ended up being something that you could look up. And he said one thing. He said, "I hated every minute of training, but said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion."
Exactly.
There's an article when he passed away. They had all of his famous ones on there, and he had a ton of them. But one of them that I think, here's one that he might and you might like. It said, "If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it."
Right.
That's one. And then it's hard to be humble when you're as great as I am.
Yeah.
I think that some of the, he's just doing that for jokes, but he obviously believed in saying these things.
He believed in it, and what we're saying here is you don't have to do what he did, scream it out to the whole world. You don't even have to say it to anybody. But if you want to experience a great life, you better start saying it to yourself. You better start speaking about yourself that way instead of, things are bad, the economy is bad, and my life, and I don't have any money, and things are difficult, and I can't get along with my wife, and I can't get along with my husband, and my children don't listen to me, my children are out of control. Those are the kind of things, the affirmations that you are saying, and that's the type of life that you are experiencing. I'm sure you are getting the point. I'm going to read you another one of his affirmations. Failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough. My determination, and your determination to succeed should be in your affirmations. You should be determined to constantly affirm what you want to experience. That's where your determination lies, changing your belief.
I have one more, and I think this is pretty good. It says, "I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was." And I think that's giving evidence to when you're saying that you need to say it before you actually are that.
Right. You have to believe you are that, or you will never become that. You have to believe it first. And that quote,
he said it before I knew I even was, so he didn't believe it in the beginning.
Right.
Too.
He didn't believe it in the beginning. And just to have others that support his belief system, even the Beatles themselves, in an interview that I watched with John Lennon and one with Paul McCartney, John Lennon himself said, We always knew we were going to be the greatest band. We always knew that we were the greatest band ever, but before anybody else knew it. So they knew it already. That's what we're talking about here. You have to know that you already are. Then you will become that person.
So I think people understand that concept now, but how do they continue to do that? Because a lot of people will start off just like you were talking about earlier, dieting or exercise. They start off good. They do it for a week, and then they stop. And it's probably the same thing with this. I'm sure other people have tried doing this.
Right.
First of all, why do people stop? And what do they need to do to not to keep going?
Well, people stop because they get started, and many people want to see instant results. There's no such thing as instant results. You know, we've talked about this on other shows. Thoughts are like seeds. I mean, it's in the Bible. It's in Scripture. You reap as you sow. They're just like seeds. Whatever you plant in the ground is what is going to grow. But think about it. If a thought is just like a seed, you will never stick a seed in the ground and in a week or two have a big apple tree giving you apples. You think that is going to happen? No. But for sure, 100,000%, I'm 100,000% sure that if you plant that apple seed and you're persistent and you continue to water it, one day you will have an apple tree. And that is for sure. But will you have that apple tree in your time, or are you going to have it in the natural? Doesn't it have to go through the natural process? Think about it. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about magic. We're not talking about hocus pocus. We're talking about nature. We're talking about your human nature. And your nature is that you plant ideas in your mind, but they must grow just like everything else in nature. They must grow. So forget about being impatient and quitting. Don't quit. Just don't quit. It's going to happen. Just like everything else that you plant in nature and continue to water, it will grow.
I heard there was a fitness expert on a radio show that I was listening to one time, and they asked him, you know, everyone wants to have six-pack abs, and you know, how do you actually get that, or how do you do it? What's the secret? And he said, honestly, the secret is, for most people, you kind of have to be crazy to get them, because it is an intense amount of work, because most people are not willing to do. He's saying it would take, if you really wanted to do that, you'd have to be in pretty good shape to begin with, and then it would take probably about a year to get there before you actually see a six-pack. For most people, of course, he talked about the like genetic people that are just predisposed to have very lean body, but for average people, he said you have to be a little crazy to get there, because you have to be completely focused in on it.
A lot of work.
And I think one thing that you've talked about before is that with a lot of your goals, like, you kind of have to develop that kind of craziness. Well, maybe not craziness, but relentlessness, where you're constantly thinking about it and constantly repeating this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even people like I've heard this. I don't know whether it's just a rumor or is it true. They said he was so into what he was doing. I mean, this is pretty extreme. I kind of don't believe it, but it's just making a point. Think about this point. They said his thinking was so much into what he was doing, and he'd come up with some pretty amazing concepts. They said he didn't know how to tie his shoes. So, I mean, I know that's pretty extreme, and I find it hard to believe, but it makes a point that he was so focused on what he was doing that he didn't even take time to do other things. I mean, they even said that he didn't even bother combing his hair or anything because he was just too focused. He didn't have time. He couldn't take himself away from what he was thinking about. Mm-hmm. I have another quote here from Ali. Your positive action combined with positive thinking results in success. Well, I can back that up because I can tell you negative thinking will never create positive experiences. Impossible. It's impossible. That's like saying you're going to plant weeds and get beautiful roses. Is that ever going to happen? No. It's never going to happen. Can't happen. I mean, and we're talking about nature here. And if we're talking about nature, you cannot change nature. And that is your nature. Think negative, create negative. Think positive and the good, you create the positive and the good. It's just nature. It's just your own nature.
So now that, we talked about you have to do this every day and you need to be relentless with it, how do you not stop? Because I think that's probably most people's downfall is how they get going. They do it for a while, but then they stop. How do you not stop?
Well, the only thing I can say about not stopping is this. It's all in the knowing, okay? What I mean by it's in the knowing, in other words, I think about it and I believe that it's true. I just say, okay, that makes sense. I believe that it's true. If successful people are saying that that's what you got to do, okay, I believe it now. So now it's in the knowing. I know. So then I say, I know that it'll happen. Look at it this way. I know for a fact, and it doesn't even matter what age I am, I know for a fact if I go back to school and sign up and I follow through the process and I just stick to the process of becoming a brain surgeon, I know for a fact that as long as I don't quit, I will be a brain surgeon, and I don't care if I'm 70, 75, 80 years old, but as long as I'm persistent and I keep it up, I will one day be a brain surgeon. I know that it will happen. My point is this. It's in the knowing. I know, and all of you listeners out there know, the more you study something, the more you learn. And if you continue to focus and keep studying and keep learning, you will get better and better and better at whatever you do. You know that. Everybody that hears my voice knows that to be true. Okay, that's what we're talking about. It's in the knowing. So if you know that this is real, you know that you will be where you want to be, that's the only advice that I can give you. It's in the knowing. Knowing that you will be there one day. Now get to work.
Another thing that I read in a book I was reading about habit. It was called The Habit Loop, I believe. And they were saying, they were examining why why is it a successful program? And what they concluded, because people were wondering, because psychologists were looking at it, and it's like, why is this program working? And like, it doesn't really make any sense why this is a successful thing. And they realized that a big part of its success is the fact that you see the other people, because at the meeting, other people have been, is like, oh, I've been sober for 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Their talk gives proof to the fact that AA works. So
Right.
that makes the new people that are in there, they say, well, it worked for him. That gives them faith. It gives them the knowing. It gives them the belief that, oh, this is going to work because it worked for that guy, worked for that guy, worked for that guy, so why wouldn't it work for me? And I think that's what the point of like today's show is, when we're reading you these affirmations from somebody who was successful, and I'm sure you could find a lot more online, that it's just proof that it worked for those people, so it could work for you too. So
it will work for you for sure. You know why? You know why it will work? That's what this show is all about, human nature. Because it's in your nature, the same as that person that's lived a successful life. It is in his nature to create his experience, but it's your nature too. Going back to what I said, I'm going to repeat again what I said earlier. It's your nature to be a creator. You are a creator. because you created your experience up to this point. That is your nature. So change what you will think and change your belief, and you will create a totally new experience for your future. Forget the past. Forget what you did in the past. Forget it. Doesn't matter. It's gone. You can't change it. It's already gone. It's something of the past. It's just what the word says, past. You can't do anything with it, so leave it alone. Start right now and create that beautiful future, because you are a creator. Create the beautiful future that you want to experience through affirmations.
Let's take a short break, and we'll be back and continuing this conversation on the Truth Only Show here on KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and 102.3 FM. We'll be right back.
The Dunkin' coffees you love, only at Dunkin'.
Look at the stars, look how they shine for you, and everything you do. Yeah, they were all yellow. I came along, I wrote a song for you, and all the things you do. Was called yellow. So then I took my turn. Oh, what a thing to have done. And it was all yellow. Your skin, oh yeah, your skin and bones turn into something beautiful. And you know I love you so. You know I love you so. I swam across, I jumped across for you. Oh, what a thing to do. 'Cause you were all yellow. I drew a line, I drew a line for you. Oh, what a thing to do. And it was all yellow.
Welcome back to the Truth Only Show. We're talking about affirmations, and when we left off, we had just talked about how you need to keep on going and not stop.
No, don't stop, ever, never. Form a habit. You know, we're creatures of habit. That's a wonderful thing. We're creatures of habit, but let's get out of that habit of thinking that, oh, if things are bad, my life's not. Forget all that junk. Get out of that habit and take on the new habit. It takes time, but once you have the habit, believe it, it's hard to stop thinking good once you've developed. You know why? Because you're going to start experiencing good. That's hard to let it go. You're not going to ever want to go back.
When you spoke about habit, that reminded me in the book I read, The Habit Loop, they talked about that, and going back to the AA thing, they talked about that they have you start believing in a higher power, and that's like one of the early things that you need to do is you need to accept that there's a higher power. And the whole idea why that is a successful way to go about the program and it makes it successful is that it's practice at believing in something.
Right.
And you're practicing believing in something, and then it starts to become normal to believe in something. And then you hear the people telling their stories, and you start believing that this can work. So it's practice believing in a higher power, then practice believing that the program works, and then all of a sudden you're believing that you could do it as well.
Right.
It's training.
Right.
It's habit forming.
Right, habit forming. You know, one thing that I've taken on a very, very strong, not just belief, I know that it's true. You know, many people have a problem with this, what we talk about here, because they're so ingrained in their religions, and they just say, no, it's God, God, God. But let me give you something. You think about it. I'm going to give you something to think about. Think about everything in nature. It works so perfectly. Everything is perfect. The plants, they're always growing. The grass is always growing. The water cycle is always happening. The planets circulate around each other. It's always happening, and it's always worked perfectly. There's always food. Yeah, we take it from each other, but the food supply is always there. Earth is always providing. There's always the water. There's always these things are always there. So we can think about it like this. That is a good thing, because can you imagine if there was no food all of a sudden? But that's not true. There's always food coming up. It's always growing. There's always more for us. Always. And there has always been, and there always will be. So that must be some kind of a power that is just providing us with all this good. I think that's a higher power. Because you know what? I believe we came from whatever that power is. That's where we come from. We're inside this universe. This universe is always providing us a way of life. So it must be good. And it's always good. And it's always providing. And we're inside this universe, so we must have come from it. So is there a higher power? Of course. It's there. It's real. You might think it's not. So I can call it whatever I want. I can say it's God. I can say it's an infinite mind, an infinite source.
Universe.
The universe, the cosmic mind. I can call it whatever I want. It doesn't matter what I call it, because I want you to think about this. It's not what you're believing in. It's what you're believing that matters. I'm going to repeat that. It's not what you're believing in. It's what you're believing that matters. That's what's going to shape your life.
I heard an anecdote one time in a positive, a motivational speaker I heard. And he said that there was a young businessman, and he goes to this guru that apparently helped all these businessmen become really successful. And the young guy goes to the guru, and he's like, how do I become successful? The guru is like, if you want to know, meet me at the beach tomorrow at 6 a.m. Shows up the next day, and he's wearing a business suit because he wants to learn about business. And the guy's there, wearing normal clothes, and he's like, you want to know about business? He's like, yeah, well, why are we here at the beach? He's like, get in the water. He's wearing a suit. He's like, well, I'm wearing a suit. He's like, get in the water. So he gets in the water, and then they're in the water in their feet, and he's like, what does this have to do with business? He's like, keep going. We'll keep walking in. They walked into his stomach, to his chest, and then eventually the water was up to his neck. And he asked the guru, it's like, why am I here? How is this going to teach me about business? He's like, you really want to learn? He's like, yes, please show me. And he grabs the young guy's head, the young businessman's head, and he shoves it under the water, and he's drowning, and the guy feels like he's drowning. This guy's going to kill me out here. And eventually, before it gets too crazy, he lets him go, and he pulls his head up, and he's like, why did you do that? And he's like, when you were under that water, it was like, what was the only thing that you were thinking about? It's like, I was just thinking about, man, I need some air. let me breathe again. And he said, exactly. He's like, when you want to be successful as bad as you wanted to breathe right then, he said, that's when you're going to be successful. And that's when you're going to make something happen. And I think that's something to aspire to, is because
Exactly.
If you want something that bad as you want to breathe, that's pretty intense motivation. And I think maybe that's something to go to. I don't know if that's probably hard to replicate that kind of dedication.
Yeah.
But I really like that story.
That's that's such a powerful story, because I know for myself, I didn't like what I was experiencing. I didn't like what was going on in my life. And I wanted it really bad. I wanted to experience, because I didn't believe that we were put here to suffer. I just didn't believe that. And I was wondering, why am I suffering? Why am I struggling with all these things in life? Why? So I wanted it like that. I wanted it that bad. I wanted to experience good feelings. I wanted to experience all the things good that I know that I figured we should be experiencing. I wanted it real bad. So I went to work, got to work, and dedicated myself to thinking the good. And wow, what a transformation.
And that's
Everything began to change.
The other thing when you're under the water is that you're only thinking about one thing. You're just thinking about air.
Right.
And you just maybe you ask yourself, like, have you ever actually wanted something that bad?
Right.
And I'm sure most people would probably say no. They never had wanted something that bad.
I knew someone that told a couple of people that wanted to get their business really going and take off.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard that one guy tell him, I thought that was pretty good. He goes, you got to make it a matter of life and death, which is basically saying the same
thing. Yeah.
You got to make it a matter of life and death. You can't just be messing around, just playing with it or doing it, once in a while and not even be serious. You got to make it a matter of life and death. You want it so bad that you're willing to do anything. And what's the anything? Life is really not supposed to be complicated. It's not. We just make it so complicated. We're giving you the simple formula to transform your life by affirmations, just by making yourself believe that you already, and it's all in your mind. It's just thinking. It's not like I'm telling you to get up and run 5 miles a day. I'm telling you something very simple. It's just thinking. Make up your mind that you are going to think good. Think that I'm already great. Try to think like Ali. I am greater than what I know I am right now. I know that I am greater. I know that things are great. You don't have to tell the world, just tell yourself, and you will begin to transform your life. It is that simple.
And I think that is all we have time for today. But we would like to remind you to go to truthonlyshow.com. If you want to hear more stories like this, more messages like this, that's all available on truthonlyshow.com. You can find previous episodes available as a podcast or for download at truthonlyshow.com.
And before we go, something I want to repeat to you that I have is something that is very important to me. I just want to remind you that if you know anyone or you yourself are experiencing any type of heart problems, if you have a fast heartbeat, slow heartbeat, irregular heartbeat, any types of those problems, if you're experiencing fainting or dizziness or anything like that, I highly recommend the brilliant Dr. Duong. I highly recommend him. Believe me, he's up with the latest technologies of the heart. He's an electrophysiologist, and you can find him at 877-773-8664. I'm going to repeat that. 877-773-8664. And I also want to remind you that you're listening to the David Paul Band. I recommend you go to davidpaulmusic.com. Check out the calendar for a fantastic night of entertainment. You will not be disappointed. And thank you very much for being with us today. And we will see you next week. Tell a friend.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.